Welcome back indeed, and going through some, the plan that the federal government did announce at that retreat, supposed to give a lot of people hope, and many say yes, it is. Well, of course, everyone can't be on the same page. Well, Dr. Austin Wenzel, let's look at this one. A would-be investor, if one were to go and invest, and then they come across that research that you may have to spend about 30% either of your proceeds or your capital on generating power for yourself.
Well,
that's something they need to look at.
Yes, it's part of your business plan, and you have to factor that in. And I know that for all the components of manufacturing in services, but between 65 and 85%, is power. Of
65 and
85%.
That's even higher than.
Yes.
So that would discourage anybody.
No, it shouldn't. Because it's the consumer that pays for it. We can't compete in the global market. China is competing today because what they're doing now started in 1978. When they decided to open up, bring in their people, invested in education, and then opened up private funds, for direct investment. China is the biggest beneficiary of direct foreign investment. They have over 20 or 30 billion and all that, being invested in China and all that, because the people, the work ethic is good in China, the education and all that. So you find that they're prepared. That's why when I talk about long-term strategic thinking, in the next few years, and don't forget that China is also predicted by 2025 to take over as the biggest economy in the U.S., which they handed over to U.S. in 1890.
Let me add this part so that we don't lose that train of thought, and I hope you don't lose yours as well, as you give a long-term analysis as well. But talking about education, now you say China invested, but in that same platform, I think I heard them say and read that this 50% that states have to contribute for UBEC funds, that they have some 58 billion that is trapped in that sector. So they have to go to the National Assembly to see how they could say, look, don't let the states pay 50%. Let them pay 10% because it's temporary. That's part of what's also making them not to be able to pay salaries. Is that going to have adverse effects on education investment?
Of course, and then they should democratize education. And in the past, I usually said that the body language of the government was that, look, we're not interested in education, we're not interested in health. Provide yourself with all of this. And I thank God for the intervention of the private schools. They have come to the rescue, and they should be encouraged some more to do more and regulate them very well. So some of these issues, the government is not even spending. It was in 2013 or thereabout. For the first time, government had up to 10% given to education in the national budget. Meanwhile, the United Nations recommended about 26% of national budget should go to education. We should even do more, because everything that we need to get out of poverty lies in education. Everything that we need to fight corruption lies in education. Everything that we need to provide the citizens the quality of life and standard of living, good standard of living, lies in education. So we must declare a state of emergency and democratize education so that we have access, because it's easier to govern enlightened people.
Should we be optimistic now that the budget has been passed, the economy can be reflated, several sectors can begin to get funds injected in them, and then it goes on?
Well, it is. It's a good thing. It's a good thing to share. But again, you find that how do we implement this? Sectors that receive money, receive a certain maybe 10 billion, 20 billion. How much will be released to them? One thing is budgeting. Another thing is the release of funds for these sectors to operate. Most times the monies are not released completely to these sectors so that they can function. Will the government get all the monies they require to be able to release to the 6 trillion?
What could possibly stop them from getting the money?
Well, that the deficit, they need to raise it, borrow it. Where are they going to get it from? The IGR in some places are nothing to write home about. The only state that can function without government intervention is Lagos State. As the only state. And they generate over 21 billion a month from IGR.
Not just Lagos. I think there's quite a number of states in the south as well. I know the rivers.
Oil money. Oil money. How many industries are there? About the oil money.
It's very key we talk about these industries coming back. I mean, look at Kaduna State. Once upon a time, a textile hub, Kaduna, and even neighboring, and even Kano then. Today, you just can't find anyone.
Is the attention that we have paid to two things, politics and oil. These are the two things that have really destroyed the enterprising spirit.
Now you're coming back to my point.
Yes.
You see what I mean? When I say a lot of people who are industry players, they're not even thinking of how to get the business running, for instance, thinking towards refinery, and someone who hasn't been there is already looking into the big picture by setting up a refinery. It goes back to maybe what the quick, how do you say it again in business? Is it quick returns?
No, you see quick return. When our business and investors need to begin to think long term. Yes, there are some businesses that you set up that will require 5 years before begin to, break even gestation period, and some 10 years, but remaining there. There are some people that I remember those days when Whispers magazine, for instance, after a few months, the founders of the business, look, I'm expecting returns, and you're not bringing it. And the official card that the publisher brought in, they took the key from him, and he walked out of that board meeting empty. And that was how the end of that magazine. Our investors are also a problem. We need to begin to think long term. In media business and newspaper business is not a short-term thing. You just come, invest and all that. If you don't have appetite for risk, you find a low, where you can invest your money, okay? And they should come off the issue of quick returns, okay? That's what is, killing some business.
Can we really blame them? Because if they didn't have the financial sector to back them, because if they tell you, look, I'm sorry, I can't give you long-term loans. Yeah. How are they going to go?
No, because these investors could be angel investors, for instance. And then the venture capital, that's why I'm advocating for more venture capital firms, to be given an opportunity. Some of these funds, they can go to the banks, rather than the banks then giving money directly to a small business and all that. Venture capital firms who understand the risk can take this pool of funds and know how to manage it, stay with the entrepreneur.
How about the interest rate?
Yeah, if you get a cheaper interest rate, a single digit. Sometimes they borrow this money at 4%, 2%, so that businesses can grow.
How far do you think that, because the National Economic Council retreat, just wrapped up, and about the same time the budget's been passed, how far do you think that the resolutions of the retreat will go, considering that they also have implementation and steering committee, and they also have the implementation and steering committee is one of the things that they have, and they also have some people to oversee what it is that they came up with and see just how far they're going to be going. Do you think it's going to be working parallel with seeing how the budget is being implemented as well?
Well, it depends on the brief given to them. If you're just focusing on this retreat outcome, now they may not pay attention to the global budget, to the bigger picture. Bigger picture, yes. So, but again, if they cannot, it'd be nice for them to really oversee or monitor the budget implementation and stuff like that. And it also comes to bear the issue of having the right people and giving them the free. The ministers, it's like they're not free. They can't take risks. It's like they're afraid. And one of the biggest,
why do you say so?
No, because you can see it in their faces. You can see their, it's as if somebody is holding a hammer over there. If you don't,
what is that impression you have?
Yes, they should be allowed to express themselves. They should be allowed to think. They should be allowed to, it's like you must conform. You must be politically correct.
Not that they were listening attentively to the seminar.
You see, because not that they're listening attentively and all that. They're just thinking, okay, good, and you do all this, you do all that. But again, you have to watch the body language of somebody that put you there to know where he said this.
But before that, isn't it because of the budget?
Are we being fair?
No, see, because they need to take risks, they need to express themselves.
Yeah, but
I don't see that happening.
How do you do that if you're waiting for the budget to be passed? What do you do with that?
No, even when you have the budget.
No, but it's just now they passed the budget.
No, but again,
it's not even been harmonized, so we can't for sure say they can run with it.
You know, because I'm saying that now that the budget is passed and all that, they should stand up and take a risk.
They can start standing up today.
Yeah, they can
because
start.
they just passed it yesterday.
Yeah, so it's important. Without the ministers and other government agencies taking the risk and knowing what they need to do without having this fear. And again,
why do you think they'll be afraid? What's
fear of failure?
You know that fear
Fear of failure.
is what I'm not going to go on that argument again, but that's why I wanted also to talk about some individuals that have not been able to come into the fray to take such risk. I mean, reading up the young man Taka, who's been able to grow his business. He's just in his early 30s, and just from selling computers and some other scrap and other things, he's been able to grow his business, and he's one of the world's richest people in the world. A lot of risk we don't take. Yeah. So individuals should start thinking of what they can do first, since we say we're not getting the single digits yet.
Yes.
So what else can the people do? People come to some institutions like yours all in the aim of seeing how they can be independent and take such risk. But if you look at it, the bulk percentage of people who go through such process, when they come out, do they pursue the kind of risk that they've been told or taught to take when they come out into the real world?
Now, let me give you an example. When I was in the university in Canada, when you graduate, you're prepared to become a good employee. But all that changed in a few years, in the early 90s. Now, one of the things you're required to do is how to write a resume. You're taught how to write a resume. Companies will come to the school and then recruit the brightest and some of those people. But now, you are taught how to prepare a business plan rather than writing a CV. So we need to rethink our education to prepare us for entrepreneurial ventures, so that you begin to think rather than preparing students how to become good employees, you can prepare them how to become entrepreneurs, employers. That is the thinking, that's the mindset that we need to change in some institutions. It's already happening. Okay, it's already happening. So, but again, we need to do that. We don't have a critical mass yet. And until you have a critical mass of something, change will not come. So we need to grow these people, have a critical mass of institutions that will begin to change the mindset of the people to begin to think like employers rather than employees.
And about the ministers, I mean, if they're afraid to fail and they do nothing, that's failure by itself.
Yes, and failure, you see, because even the president himself should take risk. He's too cautious.
Isn't that what they're doing? Highlighting those areas that we need to.
Everything we need to be cautious. We need to be cautious in this area.
That's
some of the. I can't remember exactly, but I read in the papers. We need to be cautious in doing this. Yes, it's good to plan. It requires good. When you plan well, you can now venture, knowing that yes, you have a plan A, you have a plan B. Okay. So you need to begin to do some scenarios, paint some scenarios, craft some scenarios, scenario planning.
That's what they need to speak up.
Yeah. So
in those meetings.
Yeah, at the meetings they should take risks and then not to be too cautious. With that, they say that no venture, no success. We need to. One of the greatest risks a man can take is getting married. Because you don't know what the package you're getting.
Dr. Eze, on that note. Well, very interesting perspective always. Dr. Austin Eze is an economist with the Pan Atlantic University. Thank you for your interesting thoughts there.
Thank you.
We'll be back in a minute. Don't go away.